Welcome back to Make Play Treasure. Today we're reading Mule School by Julia Rawlinson and Lynn Chapman. Stomper did not like Mule School. He liked the other mules. He liked lunchtime and playtime, but he did not like stubbornness practice. Every day his schedule was the same. 9 o'clock stubbornness, 11 o'clock kicking, 12 o'clock lunch, 1 o'clock stubbornness, 3 o'clock kicking, and 4 o'clock home. Day after day, the mules recited won't, and never. They shook their heads and stamped their feet, but one day Stomper put his hoof in the air. What if we want to do as we're told? He asked nervously. You are a mule. Refuse, cried Mrs. Kick. But what if it seems like a good idea? Mumbled Stomper. Nobody else's idea is good, she snapped, and sent him to stand in the corner. Stomper's first stubbornness test was to guard a pile of apples. He stood mumbling, no, under his breath, but before long, a scruffy pig snuffled up. My piglets are hungry. Could you spare some apples, she asked. Of course, nodded Stomper. Help yourself. The pig waddled happily off with apples, but then Stomper gulped. He had forgotten to be stubborn. Fool of a mule, cried Mrs. Kick. You must never give in to a pig. Stomper's next task was to block a path. Soon a family of goats needed to get past. Stomper stood aside and waved them by politely. But then the school's meanest mules, Biff and Bash, jumped out and laughed. We are mules. We like to kick. Weakness makes us sick, they chanted as they circled him. We're going to tell on you. You were meant to stop the goats, not let them through. They're right, thought Stomper sadly. I'm a useless mule. Stamper, why am I so weak? Asked Stomper on the playground. You're not weak. You've got a good kick, said Stamper. Come and play bash ball. He walloped the ball over the straw store, and Stomper galloped after it, forgetting all his troubles as he raced across the yard. They bashed and butted, kicked and crashed until it was time for class. That afternoon there was a field trip to practice kicking in the valley, but Stomper was sent out apple picking to replace the apples he had lost. He wandered up the valley, following a butterfly. As he listened to the mules chanting below, he heard another sound. The dam up the valley had burst, and a great river was roaring down. His friends were going to be swept away. Move! Cried Stomper as loudly as he could, but the mules didn't hear him. Leaf or branch or rock or stick, whatever it is, we'll give it a kick, they chanted far below. Run! Thundered Stomper, waving his hooves wildly, but the mules were not looking. Nose to the ground and tail to the sky, let those thundering mule hooves fly, they cried as they kicked. Then, at last, Mrs. Kick saw the water swishing towards her. She faced up the valley, dug in her hooves, bared her teeth, and cried, We are mules, and we won't budge, even for an enormous flood. The other mules took up the cry. Their eyes were wide, their ears were back, but their trembling hooves were planted firmly in the mud. Suddenly, another sound rose above the rushing water. Crash, crash, crash. The mules screwed their eyes tight shut and covered their heads with their hooves. But then, it's Stomper, cried Stamper with a mighty neigh of delight. Stomper's head was down, his heels were flying, and he was kicking with all his might. Crash, crash, crash. He kicked at rocks, he kicked at sticks, he kicked at broken branches. Wood and rock tumbled down the valley with a rumbling roar, making a new dam that whooshed the water safely away. Stomper trotted down the hill and stood casually nibbling flowers. Slowly the other mules sidled up. We were wrong, they muttered. We were foolish mules. Stomper shook his head. No, he said. You stood your ground. You did what a mule should do. It's just good that not all mules are exactly the same. Mrs. Kick looked thoughtful as she led them back to school. Next day at Mule School, the schedule read, stubbornness or pottery, 11 o'clock kicking or flower arranging, 12 o'clock lunch, 1 o'clock stubbornness or hoof printing, 3 o'clock kicking or musical mules, 4 o'clock home. At 11 o'clock, when Stomper happily kicked his way through class, Biff and Bash were down in the meadow merrily arranging daisies. The end. Hope you like this book, and remember to like and subscribe so that you can keep up with our reading events and activities. Catch you next time on Make, Play, Treasure. Bye!